Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah, it's sitting out there. I just couldn't find someplace to park.
Yeah.
All right, do you need a second or are you good?
Go ahead.
All right, let's get this rolling. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, remain standing. I even forgot today. Heavenly Father, we ask that you bless us with your presence here today. Grant to us wisdom to see the things in true perspective. Grant to us the patience to hear one another with open minds and hearts. Grant us the strength to meet all present challenges. May all that we do this day bring honor to you and credit to ourselves. Amen. Is there actually? I'm just going to do a quick roll call. Everyone's in attendance, and the meeting started at 9 o'clock on the money. Okay. We will. There's.
Say you were gonna do a roll.
I did. I just did. There are no meeting minutes to approve. So let's open the public hearing for 126 Mango Street variance.
Swear in the witnesses.
Yes, please.
Anyone who's going to testify here this morning, can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. And you
Any
disclose
ex
any
parte communications? Dan, Tim,
Oh,
Scott,
site visit.
Jane?
Nothing for me. Nothing additional.
Nothing additional.
Good morning, Sarah Probst, Community Development. Dan Andre, owner of 126 Mango Street, is seeking a variance from Section 34-1803 to allow a bed and breakfast layout that is different from the code requirement of a maximum of 3 rooms per building. The existing bed and breakfast has a configuration of 4 guest units in one building and 2 guest rooms and an innkeeper's residence in the other building. The variance would allow the layout to remain the same and would not increase the total permitted units. This layout allows a total of 6 guest units, which would be permitted within the 2 buildings per the code. Staff recommends that the LPA recommend approval of the variance requested with the attached conditions. The applicant is also available for any questions.
Name for the record.
Dan Andre, 126 Mango Street. The only comment I want to make is thank you for coming in on the sector meeting. You have my deepest gratitude. Jason, Sarah, you guys have worked hard to get me on the December 9th council, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Thank you.
I
Okay.
meant to include the attorney on that.
It's okay. It's all right.
All
You
right.
came all the way from Miami.
Yes.
No.
He's got things to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Any,
Believe me, there's.
Yeah.
any questions or questions from, of the town or of the applicant? Jim? Dan?
No.
Jane? Scott?
No.
Tim? No. Dan?
I have 15 or 20 I was going to bring up. No, I have none.
I do not have any at either. So let's open it up for public comment. Any public comment? No public comment. Let's close public comment. Any additional discussion or motion?
I just want to add on that if anybody asks about the timing of it, again, last meeting we talked about getting these so that they're paired up. The 2 applications are paired up, that they go together so the council has an opportunity to review both together and not separate. We thought it was a benefit for them to do that on December 9th. So.
And this is also to clear up
Right.
we needed to do both
Right.
and each
Really good.
separate.
Correct. But
And
the
so I'm
time,
sitting
but the
here.
timing and the quick timing behind it was simply because I got a question about that from the public when they heard, and I just want to make sure that that's on the record, that it's so that the 2 can go together, and it's more clear, bigger, complete picture for the council when they evaluate it.
Well, and that we're also not just pushing this through, that we heard testimony and such
Correct.
last week on all of
No,
this.
it's largely also as a result of the configuration coming up during the special exception hearing. Had staff known about that, we would have worked to have done it last week, but it just works out this way as well.
Applicant's okay with the conditions? Do I hear a
I'd like to
motion?
make a motion to approve variance to section 34-1803 to allow the configuration of 4 guest units in one building and 2 guest units in the other building of a bed and breakfast not to exceed a total of 6 guest units with,
Subject to the,
so, I'm getting there, subject to the conditions 1 and 2. I find that it does meet all of the conditions.
page 8 package on the page 8, right?
Page 8 of
Oh,
our package.
page 8 of the conditions 1 and 2 on page 8, yes.
I second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. I had to count for a second. Not careful, I'm going to have to use my, all right. So that closes the public hearing on 126 Mango Street. You're welcome. And let's open up our administrative agenda. Do we need any additional updates on Historic Preservation Board? Okay. So let's move on to LPA member items. Jim, do you have anything?
No,
Dan?
I have nothing.
I just have to say that on the way home from their last LPA meeting and on the way here from this LPA meeting, Dan and I went over and over how many violations there will be against neighbor with the 48 inches from the street and the 8-foot setback for any fence or bushes from the street or the sidewalk. Is it the street or the sidewalk?
Edge of pavement is the extra condition that we were, or language that we were adding. Edge
So
of
it's pavement,
It's not sidewalk, it's edge of
pavement,
travel
so
lane.
they might
for
make it,
pavement.
but, so anything right at the sidewalk would have to be 48 inches. I think we're opening up a huge can of worms doing that, and I think we're going to pit neighbor against neighbor unless we can grandfather in what's there.
It is 42 inches now.
You're
It's an
already in violation.
increase of 6 inches. So if there, and there's a visibility triangle that applies to driveways on local streets. So if there are
Now-
fences and other
Will it-
items that are in the way, they are in violation now.
So all those 8-foot tall hedges along the street are going to have to go down to 48 inches.
Again, commercial properties, CPDs, other things that were approved prior to may have other regulations because of
residential or
landscape
whatever?
codes. And single-family residential lots don't have a landscape requirement. Multifamily, commercial, hotels, those have landscape buffers,
Okay.
they have other things. Now, the height of them, we can look at, but ultimately, it's safety is what we're trying to promote. So yes, there may be instances where there's encroachments. We've had to deal with multifamily condos that do have encroachments, and they were losing them as part of the Estero Boulevard improvements. What do they do after that? Well, you should bring it into compliance so you can actually see to get out of the driveway.
Okay, so if they have a permit for a fence or something that is not opaque, will they have to replace that?
It's case by case, but generally speaking, as those structures or those items deteriorate, as they have to replace them, they have to come into compliance, yes.
I've heard
Now,
it,
if they're non-conforming because they're legal, that's one thing. If they're things that we get a lot of fences that get put up without permits.
I was not at the magistrate hearing when this happened, but I just heard about something was brought up for discussion after this came through, that this pool fence got, because it's only 42 inches now and is being required to be replaced, and they've had their application in 5 weeks, and they're in magistrate being fined, and it's just been extended to January to get the permit. I think that's ridiculous for a fence.
So,
I'm not sure,
let
I'm not
me-
sure which particular piece of property we're talking about from the special magistrate, but the basic concept of government permitting is that if you obtain a properly issued permit and the regulations subsequently change to make that non-compliant, then you are a legal non-conforming use, and you can continue that activity or that, have that structure, whatever it was that was permitted, until such time as through either natural obsolescence, redevelopment, storm event, whatever the situation may be, that permitted use or structure then has to conform to the new regulations if and when the property owner comes in to obtain approvals to redevelop or whatever may be the case. One of the things that we've struggled with here is the issue of a permit that has been issued, but has been issued in error. And unfortunately, during my tenure here as the town attorney, we have found a number of instances where, through no fault of staff, because in many instances the permitting was being handled by Lee County at the time, Lee County issued approvals that don't meet the requirements of the code. And under Florida law, and I don't make this up, I'm just telling you what the courts have said, you don't have a right to rely upon an improperly issued permit that was issued by mistake. Because if it didn't comply with the code, then it was by definition, according to the courts, issued by mistake.
Very expensive.
Aren't
applicants.
there a lot of situations where something pre-existed, even the requirement for having a permit?
If they can show that
Yeah.
it pre-existed,
Yeah.
any prior regulations, that may be the case. But we have, again, a lot of property owners who come in and say, well, it's always been there. And, the records do go back pretty far back. I mean, we have been able to track down some of those things. A completely separate issue is property owners who have done something, who have built something without a permit at all. And I, from my personal experience as the one who assists staff in making presentations to the special magistrate, this is a general statement, and there are exceptions. The vast majority of cases that go before the special magistrate that involve permitting issues are instances where someone undertook development without the benefit of a permit, or if a permit was issued, exceeded the scope of the permit. And it's that component of the permit that is being pursued by staff. With respect to the particular pool issue that you're discussing, I don't know the particulars. I can't answer.
I also don't think that we should be specifically arguing a specific case like this.
Well, I didn't bring it, I just
There's
said,
all kinds
I
of
didn't give
legalities there.
address or anything like that.
Yeah,
But
but-
I figured that a pool had to be CO'd, so.
I'm just more concerned.
And
The pool may have been CO'd, but the fence that then was built or the enclosure may not have. And again, that is a significant portion of the cases that move forward to the special magistrate are those types of situations where, X was permitted, but the property owner built Y. And it's that delta between X and Y that they sometimes they don't, unfortunately, and the reason why they do end up moving forward to the special magistrate is that the property owner can't do Y because it's in the setbacks or it's not permitted by the code as it currently exists, and therefore it ends up being a code violation. And again, these are just kind of general statements, but that's as the individual who assists staff in making those case presentations to the special magistrate, generalization is that the vast majority of them they exceeded the scope of the permit or they didn't get a permit to begin with.
And if, I normally don't say anything, but I think there's so much rhetoric about timing here in this town. It's very dangerous how much conversation I'm having with people constantly using this. It's taking 5 weeks, it's taking 10 weeks, with all due respect. But frankly, when you come and look at the case that they're finally talking about, they give me the actual instance, they give me the permit number, it's because people are submitting garbage applications, because they're resubmitting things that aren't in compliance with the code. And honestly, the staff is under fire for a lot of this, and they're busting their butts to do this. And as John said very well, that's usually the case, 9 times out of 10. I guess, why is this flood permit taking too long? Because they built 3 times as much as they were supposed to. They're out of scope. They're way over their 50%, or potentially. So we have to be careful because there's a lot of conversation that keeps circling back around about this. And I promise you, we're doing everything we can do to get people in and out. And there's always reasons. Now, are there cases where something took a week longer and we went back and relooked and they were right? Okay, you resubmitted something that cleared it up? Yes, but that's not the majority of the time, I promise.
Well, these are, and I don't disagree with anything said, but the area that's going to be troublesome here are primarily landscaping that now violates what we've adopted. And some of those shrubs and hedges go back forever. And I don't see how we can, I don't think they ever were required to have a permit at the time that was put in. There's all sorts of landscaping in this community that immediately abuts the sidewalks.
Sure. Well,
And-
and again,
and
you're right.
we'd
there's
have
not a
to
permit.
practically denude Estero Boulevard to eliminate that.
There's still a safety visibility issue that's always been in place. Whether it's
I'm
been
sorry.
There's still a safety and a visibility issue that's always in place that is a critical part of that. There always has been, whether it's been enforced or not, I don't know, but when you go from 3 feet to 8 feet, all of a sudden, you're right. I mean, we're not going to have something that says it was a 4-foot shrub or hedge, and then now it's 7 feet. The reality is, over time, those things grow.
There's some that are 25 feet.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
And again, you know, to add to what Jason has said, we're not saying that code enforcement is going to be going out after those individuals. If a property owner can show that the permit existed, then that's not an issue, or that it predated the establishment of the regulations. But again, to emphasize what Jason has said, the issue here is primarily safety and the site triangles. That, you know, if you're a neighbor or you're someone just driving at an intersection on a corner, and you have an extremely high hedge, you can't see the traffic coming the other way. Or if you're the potentially the neighbor, and you can't see. And those regulations, the site triangle regulations, again, it's a generalization, have been around for a very long time. Because it's just common sense whenever you're developing and you're entering and exiting a highway or road or side street, that there are safety concerns and those safe minimum site triangles have been established in the code for a number of years. Even more so along state and federal roads, because those are controlled by the Department of Transportation, that has what is commonly known, and we adopted, you all saw this about 7-8 months ago, the traffic manual, standard traffic manual that establishes those. And again, that document that is commonly referred to by engineers as the Green Book has been around since as long as I can remember, as long as I've been practicing, which is now almost 30 years.
Well, in summary, they can continue only if it was whatever it is that's in violation was permitted, or it was established prior to the requirement of a permit. But what if
Go ahead. Sorry.
add in the safety factor? My example, corner on my street, there are trees that have been there, a whole row of areca palms. Very bad site intersection, clearly violates the site triangle. They've been there for 45 years. Can we require those trees to be removed?
Have to be opaqued.
Pardon?
They just have to be opaqued and 8 feet from the drive.
Yeah, but his are not, what he's talking about is not.
Two things. The answer to that is dependent upon two factors. One, the location of the palms. If they're in town right away or state DOT right away, then the government has the ability to remove those because they're on government property without and create an issue. Secondarily, the analysis still stays the same to some degree, which is did they predate the adoption of the regulations, or if they were put in with a permit.
And just kind of, well, and there's other factors, right? So location of stop signs, stop bars, all those things play a role in visibility. So those things can be looked at, but ultimately, at the core of what we're supposed to do, it's
Well,
public
there
health,
is no
safety, welfare.
question here that it violates. There's
Sure.
been, that's not the issue.
So then we say, send it to us and we
The
evaluate
issue is
it.
whether we can remove them, require them removed, and they're not on, I don't believe they're in the right of way. They're on private property. But the stop sign is set back so far, you cannot, you have to pull out into the street before you can see cars. And there are situations like that all over town.
And we would like the opportunity to address those, because at the core of what we
Yeah.
do, it's supposed to be health, safety, and welfare of the public.
For me, it's even more, now that the road has widened, it's not so much the cars, it's the bike path. There are several streets on this island, and I've been guilty of it a couple times. You, as you say, you stop at the stop sign, and then as you inch out there, you're looking at cars, you're not accustomed yet to knowing that the bike is coming down. And a couple of them, I've almost got, just by looking this way, inching out because I can't see around the hedges. So heaven forbid someone gets hit on a bike and really seriously hurt or killed, because then it's not going to be about when the trees are coming down, it's how they're coming down.
And I think that's a great point, because there's some other techniques that should be looked at. I mean, when I was in Nashville and Asheville, actually, they both use color-coded bike lanes in areas where there's conflicts. So when you have the intersection coming up to another major street, they color-code that bike lane and that sidewalk area and all that to kind of as a visual reminder that you're getting into an area where there's potentially other traffic coming, not just the lane. So there's other techniques that DOT has supported that could be looked at.
Yeah, I know
especially in our
there's
local
been
streets.
discussion, and hopefully, it's something, I mean, bright green, whatever color you need to paint them to make them stick out, because
But
some people can see it just looks like the shoulder. It doesn't
Right.
necessarily look like a bike lane.
So our vegetation requirements, minimum standards, and sometimes conditions, the visibility triangle, the fences, they don't always match up. So it's always this puzzle that we're trying to fit together on site development review. I know it drives Sarah nuts with the 3 versus the 4 versus the 5. That's what we're trying to fix and hopefully get. It's never going to be aligned perfect because it's site-by-site issues, but we want the safety to be first and foremost.
Good? Scott?
Nope. Nothing.
Tim?
No.
Dan?
Yes. I had the good fortune to be representing us at the town council meeting yesterday. There were 3 items that were up that had previously appeared before us. The amendment to the ordinance to exclude condos from the restriction of weekly rentals. That was approved unanimously. The second was the vacation of portions of the right-of-way in connection with the Margaritaville project. And the mayor asked me to comment on that. I said that we approved that, I believe unanimously, with understanding it was simply implementing the previously approved conditions of the ordinance 1804 and the master concept plan in relation to that. However, the last item was the boardwalk, and that was very controversial. The town brought in some new people that testified, did not testify before us. One, Ms. Collins, was her name? Collins?
Ms. Collins did not testify. She's
Oh,
an attorney, so
yeah.
she cannot testify.
All right.
She assisted staff in their presentation due to her familiarity with the issue and her past representation of the town in the related litigation that you all heard about at the LPA meeting. The only additional witness that testified was Chad, our environmental specialist, who talked about some of the environmental characteristics of the property that you all heard about from the staff presentation, as well as from the applicant's presentation. But the decision was made to have him available to address those specific issues. But that information was in the LPA staff report.
We heard a lot more about that litigation and the consequences of it from Ms. Collins, although, as you correctly say, she didn't testify. She was part of the staff report, and the young man that, I think that was different. There's some new evidence there that I didn't recall we had at the town council, at the LPA level. But nevertheless, after a lengthy hearing, it was denied. The two men on the council voted for it. The 3 women voted to disallow it. I had just one comment that I'd like to bring up here, that in the Vice Mayor Murphy brought this up on his own in the initial part of the meeting on the council members' comments. In the agenda, the printed agenda, on this item it says, Dune walkover, motion to deny the special exception due to failure to meet the minimum requirements of the Land Development Code and inconsistent with the requirement for development. He challenged, and I have to agree with him. Motion to deny due to failure to do this and failure to require this. Those are conclusions that haven't yet been made. It seems to me that it should be more like what our agenda says today, motion to approval or disapprove. To me, it creates an implication that, worst of all, some people will think it's already been denied at some level. There's been some level at which there's been a denial due to these. We don't usually put why something was denied in the agenda item. I think it's prejudicial to do it that way, and I think the mayor, vice mayor, has recommended that in the future the agendas don't take a position like that when prior to the hearing in characterizing the matter that's coming before them.
There is a position taken in the staff reports and in the other backup data information. So I guess that's probably why that's actually the software that a lot of governments use. That's the way it's set up, as far as this is the motion box to assist. And if you want to make a different motion, obviously you can reread it. But I didn't mean to step on you, John. I just was.
We are in the process of making sure we will, and can't guarantee because we're still working through the processes. As Jason indicated, there is a dedicated software that we use to prepare the agenda and the agenda items for both the LPA and the town council. But we are working to make sure that all future staff reports, when it comes to the requested motion, that it reads for quasi-judicial matters, that it reads substantially as what you currently have before you, which is approve with conditions, or deny. It's up to you, and ultimately up to the town council. What the staff what that sheet will continue to have, though, is the staff recommendation based upon their analysis to approve with conditions, or deny as may be appropriate. So you will see staff reports saying, we're recommending denial and ask you to approve a motion denying the item. But the motion itself we are working toward instituting that motion to approve with conditions, or deny, whatever the item is.
I don't believe I remember it being written that way in our
Oh,
stuff.
I
But
haven't
then the
either.
motion wasn't written at that point.
Oh, I've never seen it come right out like that on an agenda and say deny.
I've seen it in the recommendations from the town staff, but
yes,
not written on here.
It very well, it may have been a glitch in the software, and it just didn't get caught by staff. But our past practice, and certainly our future practice, is to be neutral and just lay out what your alternatives are on the actual agenda item, as far as what the motion is for you all to take up.
And because I've dealt with the same software, the same question, the same issue in multiple jurisdictions. And ultimately, the goal for us is to give you the tools to cleanly and readily make motions. Sometimes we have that issue if it's not clear enough from us which sections it's consistent with. We're always throwing in the page 8 or whatever, section of the staff report. We want to make that cleaner and easier for you to find and make your motions, or incorporate parts of that into a denial, or whatever. We don't want you stumbling up there. We want to make it easier for you to be able to find it and read whatever motion you want to make. I think this came out of that, but as John said, separating those two a little bit. But ultimately, the goal is to make it easier to actually read that motion, since it can be very technical. You got to have the reasons why denial, or you got to have the reasons for approval.
Well, I appreciate your efforts to not have that happen again. The only other thing is that in the approval, they approved the deviation on the width, correct?
I'm sorry, for what?
Of the boardwalk.
It was denied. The application, or the request was denied, so there was
The
no.
request for the deviation was denied. I meant that, but,
I thought he withdrew the deviation.
pardon?
Well, I know it doesn't matter at the end of the day, but I thought he had removed the deviation when we had talked to him.
Yeah,
Before he come through us.
That was the issue, is that the deviation was never properly before either the LPA or the town council.
and that's my point. That's my point.
Well, I think we pulled that
Regardless
out.
of whether it was approved or denied, it wasn't before us, and I've reviewed the package and the minutes, and we were allowed to either approve or deny a deviation there that wasn't in the application, and yet we required Mr. Andre.
Because it wasn't,
no,
you
no.
didn't, okay?
No, no, no,
Let's
no.
make it clear.
We caught it. Wait a minute, we caught
Correct.
it. We caught it in here. I think Jane caught it, and then he goes, I will withdraw that need for the deviation. He's flat out testified he would withdraw that need for deviation. Yeah,
They
that's
were-
the bigger question.
Their
They then
present,
raised it again at the town council level, and we advised the town council, just as we all advised you, that it wasn't properly before them. And they pushed the issue, and ultimately it didn't matter
it's
because the
moot.
town council denied it. But no deviation as far as, with respect to the width of the dune crossover was ever properly before the LPA
Yeah.
or the town council.
But if it was withdrawn, it shouldn't even have
So
gone to the.
they-
council.
They made the
raised it.
presentation.
They raised it independent of any staff. Staff very specifically said in the report, 4 feet wide, that there was no deviation, there was nothing, that is the requirement of the code. During the middle of the hearing, towards the tail end, the applicant's attorney said, and oh, by the way, just as they did with you all, we want you to consider, if you're going to approve this, to make it wider than 4 feet. And there was a discussion about the appropriateness of that. And again, ultimately, it didn't, it wasn't relevant because of the end vote.
But it was caught in here too.
And it was
That he
part
did-
of our resolution of approving. The motion to approve made by Jane and seconded by me was that the reduction from 6 feet to 4 feet was referred to in there. But I understand the distinction now, but as what occurred there and what occurred with Mr. Andre.
I think they changed their approach, is what they were trying to do, is basically once it became quote-unquote public, that's what their attempt was, really, if I remember the presentation. But it's a moot point, I think, at this point.
Here, if I may, about a year ago today, LPA member Safford made an announcement that was very helpful to me and got me involved, and I think he forgot. So I'm going to yield to him if you want to, again, make that announcement about volunteering for the sand sculpting championship. I thought it was really helpful last year.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Yeah, we actually still need some volunteers for the sand sculpting event. We actually need help on Thursday. The event starts Friday, but they're a little bit short on people to help set up. And of course, Thanksgiving, there's not that many Canadians helping this year. Usually we get all the Canadian contingent helping at sand sculpting, but it's a fantastic event. They're actually having a night portion, sand sculpting at night under the stars. So that's going to be really cool. It's going to be I think Friday after Thanksgiving, but it's
Saturday. What, let me, hold on one second.
Jim's got it.
Got it right here. Saturday night, November 30th, at 6 p.m.
Yeah, Saturday, the Saturday after
Yep,
Thanksgiving.
6 to 9, yep.
6 to 9. It's going to be fantastic. But
November,
we're
right,
calling
it is
out,
November, yep.
yeah,
Saturday, November 30th.
Okay.
See-
Thanks, Noah.
yeah. So any and all volunteers, if you have some friends, family coming down, it's a great event. And we got Jim involved last year. He's helping again this year. So, and Dan's always out there. Tim's always out there. So if you guys can come out and help, that'd be great.
Thank you. Anything else from any other members? And I am good too as well. So moving on. Attorney items.
Nothing.
No, just a reminder, it'll be busy next week, or next month. We tried to slip a couple extra on here to get it through, but that didn't work out. So next month we'll,
We're gonna slip a couple extra on this
I
one?
thought about it, but,
We told you no.
no, of course I didn't do that. So yeah, we'll be hopefully busy next
So what
month.
are we gonna be seeing? Can you tell us?
Not entirely because it's slipping my mind, a couple of them, but yeah, several, I think 3 LDC text amendments and a couple other cases.
Height and side setbacks?
Yes, some version of that, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. That's it.
All right.
Motion to,
No,
no?
can't yet. Any
No,
public
public.
comment? No public comment. There you go. Make your motion.
Motion to convene.
What?
Is it more?
One more thing.
One more thing. I want to go back. I'm sorry because we started talking about the other items. Going back to the reason we're here. I don't recall whether or not we opened it up to public hearing.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And we also did public comment and closed it,
I-
motioned it, discussed
No
it.
one, yeah, let the record reflect no one's in the audience.
When is our next scheduled meeting going to be on time?
Yes, the second Tuesday of December.
Okay.
Whatever date that is.
Number
Mr. Calendar.
10th.
Oh, Madam Chair, I thought of something else that came up yesterday.
Okay,
The requirement that our packet be, this was not at the open meeting, but I mentioned it to the mayor that this came up and that the matter was referred to our attorney to determine who has the authority to amend the policy and procedures of the, and I don't know where they stand on that, but she certainly was in agreement with it. As she pointed out to me again, which we were told at the last meeting, that their deadline is noon on Wednesday. And their meeting is on Monday.
Monday,
Our
so it's-
deadline is noon on Friday, and our meeting is Tuesday. But I don't think either of those deadlines are adequate, in my view. But it's something, I don't know where that's going. Hopefully there'll be done something about that.
Yeah, I saw the copy of the 30 pages of procedures that you guys have, and so that's the
we happen
question.
to have multiple, I seem to be the only person with a copy of that, and they were passed out, God, 2 years ago.
Michelle's got everything, so thankfully she had a copy of it.
Who?
Michelle,
Okay.
Town clerk.
town clerk,
So
I'm
if we
sorry.
could, I mean, it'd be nice, I think, for everybody to have a copy of that too as well.
Okay, yeah, yeah, we've identified some things in there that are outdated.
Yeah,
Yeah, but the question is, again, can you change them? Who gets to change these things,
Yeah.
even if they're outdated? Because if they're out, that's what we're talking about, I
Yeah,
guess.
I believe that and we'll have a report to you all at the next meeting, that under the LDC, you all adopt your policies and procedures as to how to conduct the hearings and the meetings. The question that we are trying to determine internally is whether or not then historically those have gone to the town council for essentially approval as well.
Well, if we get to amend our own and send it to town council for approval, everyone here needs a copy of what we currently have to even, I seem to be the only person with it to even know what's in it. So it'd be nice if at next meeting, everybody, or before next meeting, could have a copy of that. I
Can you
appreciate it.
email it?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
It'll be a PDF.
Some of us would prefer paper copy in a perfect world, or imperfect world.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to, I don't know if I have a Word version of it. I think we have a PDF. If we had a Word version, I'd give it to you. You could actually do some edits on the computer, but we'll get you a copy.
Hey, I can throw that in a Word and edit it
Yeah,
from a
okay.
PDF in a
Yeah,
heartbeat.
Okay.
All right, so that we get everybody this policy and procedure, and it does go over, how we conduct our meetings, order, conduct, everything in here, so, okay.
I just want to make a note about that. If your policies, I do know, because we had them yesterday for the Dune walkover public hearing, because there were a number of people present. We have historically, staff has gone first to make their staff presentation, and then generally the applicant. But at least with respect to the town council's policies and procedures for quasi-judicial hearings, it's actually reversed, and I suspect yours are as well, where the applicant goes first. But again, that's something to,
Here it goes, the staff presents the affidavit of publication, then we take,
assuming that's.
Chair has to-
Because
then
most
it's
instances.
ex parte, but that kind of gets blurred into, you guys read it and present it all at the same time. That's been kind of blurred there. Then ex parte, applicant presents his case to the LPA, asks questions, staff presents its side, LPA asks questions, public comment, testimony's
So the
open,
applicant does go first, yeah.
close it, any rebuttal, staff presents their rebuttals, testimony, promotion.
So
portion.
yours mirrors the current town council procedures. My point is that historically, as long as I've been here, as your town attorney, staff has been the one who makes their presentation first, but the rules say it's the applicant. So unless you change it, I don't want you all to be surprised that maybe we start following those rules and have the applicant go first.
Okay. And this is where it's kind of got blurred, is that it does state that they are to read why we're here.
Correct. Just as simply, we're here to consider the application of X, Y, and Z for A, B, C. The applicant will go first, and that would be the intro.
For ex parte communications, according to this, if we're going to
Yeah,
follow it.
I will continue to exercise a little bit of pride and say, let's disclose the ex parte communications up front.
Wouldn't you read what we're here talking about first, so that it's on official record what we're talking about, and then have we had any ex parte communications related to that? I mean, it's either or.
This makes sense.
Yeah. But what ends
We'll
up
follow,
happening is they.
we'll follow the procedures.
Okay.
We'll follow the procedures.
Or whatever procedures you adopt, yeah.
Yeah, or whatever, you may have.
So point is, we'll get that out to you.
Okay. All right. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0, and we have adjourned at 9:42 a.m.
I wouldn't have opened my mouth, we could have been out at 9:10.
Could have set a record.
My fault.